Good morning, awesome people. Welcome again to another morning inspection. Today is just a few hives. I think two hives really I'm going to be inspecting. I'll be inspecting number 9 and number 7. So guys, just checking out to see how this queen is doing. If you can realize, she has built out most of the comb. Before, most of the comb are really built out halfway, but now they're a little bit about, I would say probably 80%. They're about 80-85% now. And you see there's quite a few lot of honey storage over this side, and quite a few brood drone brood at this point, right? But I'm not worried yet. Just going through. They have nectar, young larvae at the bottom of this frame as well. And this side is basically a similar setting to the adjacent side to it, or opposite side to it. Let's see what this frame has now. Well, the queen has a lot of space. This frame has majority open brood, so there's a lot of larvae in the central section of that side, and quite a few on this side as well, guys. So this frame will eventually be fully capped off with brood soon, based on what I'm seeing. Not seeing the queen as yet though, but keeping our eyes peeled for her. I would have wanted them to fully build out the comb, but they haven't fully built it out. But whatever they've built out so far, it's basically brood they're putting in there. And I want you guys just to take a look at her. There she is. Not as long as the usual queens you'd see, but nonetheless. But she's one of those dark looking queens. Hopefully you guys can see her. There she is, taking her time looking for somewhere to lay. Alright guys, so this frame is quite a lot of pollen is on this frame. Literally all of this section here and some of these lower sections are pollen, but there are also larvae in it in the top section here. So let's see how this side looks. So this side has more brood than the other side, but this is definitely a pollen frame, guys. I would classify this as a pollen frame. So what I might do is put, well, it depends on how the other two frame looks, which I suspect will have pollen on it as well. So let's see. Alright, this frame as well has a lot of pollen on it. So what I'm going to do, guys, is one of these two frames, I'm going to flip it, and yes, I'm going to move this pollen frame. Actually, I'm going to leave that one there, Alright, so there's one frame I have left to inspect in this one, in the top section here, and it's this little frame here. I had run out of frame at some point, and this is what I have in terms of a medium frame. And you see, you don't want to put mismatched frames in a hive, guys. What they'll do is build bore comb like this on the bottom section of it, if you realize. Well, one of these days I'm going to move it out, but right now I can't because it's filled with stores in terms of pollen, nectar, and a little bit of, I see a little bit of brood on it, but it's predominantly pollen frame. That frame is predominantly a pollen frame. So this is basically one of the older queens, and she has built up nicely. As I said, about 8 frames of brood in there. She has a decent pollen frame on both back and front, and she has a decent honey frame as well, back and front. So that's looking up. They're not super aggressive, it seems, but I think it's really probably because the population itself of the hive isn't that large. Alright, so they build this out somewhat. She's laying back here, that much I know. Let's see if she's on the other side of this frame. No, but they built out, well, it's about a third of the frame, and she has been back here laying, guys, so that's a decent sign. At least she's spanning all the way to the back of the hive. Alright, so the second frame here. I recall one of these frames being a honey frame the last time I came in here, you know. And so it is. They only added a little bit more to this frame in terms to the bottom section, but she's laid out here. Quite a few drone brood as well, but normal worker brood is out here. This frame is jam-packed with honey. So she's taking her time on building up, it seems. So this is so far, guys, I've not really seen a full frame of brood. All the brood I've seen is probably 3/4 worth so far. So let's hope we can see some more brood. So this is a better frame now, guys. That's good. That's pretty decent. Full frame of brood. All the empty cells seem to have larvae in there, especially this side. So that's good. Honey bow at the top. Let's see how this one looks. Alright, similar setting to this one as well, fully built out. Not much honey on this frame though. So this comb is top to bottom brood, and that's lovely. That is pretty lovely. Alright, so you know that frame is the third one. So moving along to towards the front of the hive, guys. So far, I would say we're at about, rounded up to about 3 frames of brood so far, and this can make it 4. This one have a little bit more honey in it though, right at this section here, but yeah, so brood nonetheless. So 4 frame of brood on this little patch of drone. This little patch not cause to worry. That would mean it have approximately a half frame worth of brood so far, drone brood so far. Haven't come up on a pollen frame yet, guys, so that's also something I need to check here. Is I need to see a pollen frame, but not seeing any yet. This is the 5th frame with brood. This frame is built really crisscrossy in the middle. Alright, so I'm gonna put this back. Yeah guys, so I'm not seeing any pollen. Alright, so finally a pollen frame. So this frame is probably about 90% pollen with a little patch of, ooh, you see that guys? A little patch of brood there, but it's mostly or predominantly pollen. Alright, so they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or I could say 6 frame. Yeah, so 6 frame of brood with 3 lovely frame as well, which is top to bottom, so that's looking nice. One thing I'm going to do though guys is one of these empty frames at the end here, I'm going to move them towards the center of the brood, which is about, but I am going to do it with this hive guys. So these 2 are really empty frames, they haven't built out at all, so moving it there with the hopes that they will build it out. So let's hope this is much better this time around. In one of the last videos I was doing a summary like this, my head got chopped off. Alright, so today's inspection guys, I really just checked out 2 main hives, and that is number 7, which is right there, and number 9 right here. A little history about the hives is that number 7, that queen is basically one of my original queens from 2019. It came from hive number 1 initially, where hive number 1 showed signs of swarming. So what I did was to move the queen to a new box and leave a portion of the bees in hive 1 to make a new queen with the swarm cells that were left there. So hive number 7 has developed nicely. It is basically at about 8 frame strength, I would say, of brood, but the colony really spans the entire box, because one thing I also did with it today is to move one of the pollen frames, because it has about approximately 2.5 frames of really good pollen. So I moved one of the pollen frames to the back, and so how the colony is right now is like a textbook colony in the sense that there's nectar and honey at the back extreme ends of the colony, back and front, and then there's a frame of pollen, and then inside now is all brood. So that's how the colony is set up right now. Alright, so I think getting it into that kind of setup will give the queen a greater potential to lay more at the back of the hive, and the bees will do less work in terms of moving pollen from the back to the closer frames to the back than what it was before, right? Number 9, basically it doesn't have a full 10 frames in there. I think it has 9 frames, and of the 9 frames, I think about 3 or 4 frames were really solid frames of brood, and they had roughly about 2 that is about half built or 3/4 built with brood on it. So I'll score it about a 5 frame with brood. There's one frame of pollen, or one pollen frame really in that colony. So I wasn't able to do something similar to what I did with number 7 in terms of making it have pollen at the back and pollen at the front. But what I did though for this is there were 2 frames that were really empty, that they didn't start build out yet. Those are really at the back. What I did was to move those empty frames into the center of the colony, where there were frames that were fully brooded out. I basically put them between those frames, right? So what they will do now is those frames, they will potentially build them out faster than if I let them remain at the back, just because it's in the center of the cluster. Well, it is in the cluster of the brood, so that's really why they'll build it out faster. Of the splits that I made in March, it is the one that is really lagging behind. But I believe it will eventually build up. I don't know if there's any pests like varroa mites that's really pressuring them, as well as it could mean that it's shaded or too shaded. Um, I don't know, based on how all the other colonies are positioned in the apiary. Number 9 would be the one that's really getting a lot of shade, right? I don't know, I've always wondered about that. If giving the colony or the box or the hive itself sufficient sunlight, if that really affects how quickly a colony can build or not. Even colonies right here, an example is with number 4 and 5, sorry, number 3 and 4. Number 3 would be getting less sunlight than number 4, but number 4, and as a result, with number 4 getting more sunlight, it's showing more sign that it's actually building faster. So that's what I'm seeing. Number 7 was actually behind in terms of population compared to number 9, and they were basically granted. Number 7 was basically queen right the moment I made the split, while number 9 had to really went through a little time period when that queen would have to hatch out and go and lay and get mated and all of that, right? But the fact that now it is much stronger than number 9 also sparks my curiosity in terms of the position of hives, in terms of getting ample sunlight. I don't know, all signs to me is showing that when the hive has ample sunlight, they build much faster than when they're under the shade or pretty much getting a lot of shade. The colony itself, or the brood section of the colony, there needs to be a consistent temperature. I think 97 or something like that. I don't know, it could be more, 97, 90, between some in the 90s it should be. That's what they maintain the temperature as. And given that it is in a shaded area, what that would mean is that it wouldn't get any sunlight or ample enough sunlight to really give the bees a little break, you know, to where the sun would warm up the box, and they don't have to do as much work to keep the brood warm when it's in the shade. While in the sun, what would happen is the colony now will get by sometime close to midday, you'd find that they really don't have to do any work really to maintain that high temperature or consistent 90-degree temperature, you know. So more bees can actually go out and forage, you know. So it reduces that kind of role of the bee, and improve on the foraging aspect. And the more the bees forage, basically the more the colony grows, because they have more food to take care of the young, right? So I strongly believe the position of hives can affect how they build out.